I want to thank you for the invitation to attend today and share with you what has been a wonderful occasion, and to acknowledge the contribution that the Lithuanian community has given to basketball. We go back before we opened the Albert Park Stadium, and my first coach of our state team, Leon Beltrinas, tried to teach us a weave. Now, I don't know how many basketball people we have here, but a weave is an action where you dribble, you hand off the ball to your teammate, he drives, hands off the ball to a teammate, until you can find a way of penetrating to the basket. We were so inept that when we started to try to weave, we would finish back over the centre line. So Leon had a fair amount of difficulty teaching us those methods that have been so successful, of course, in his homeland, where he was a great coach, and he was a great coach here in Australia as well. The other thing is that I'm looking around, and we might have enough people here of my vintage, who will remember the great contribution of Olympians to our first ever Olympic team in 1956. So we had Stan Dargis and Algie Ignatavicius. Now, Algie came from Adelaide, where I don't know, where's our Adelaide representative here? You're too young, I think, to remember Algie. He was one of the absolute pure shooters that we had, that I still remember even in that era, and now he would be just as good today as what it was, or what he was back then. So there were two great players who represented us well in the 1956 Olympic Games. And then, of course, there was Eddie Palabinskas, which I hope most of you know, who was the second leading scorer in our Olympic team in 1972, and the leading scorer of the Olympic Games in 1976. In one of our games in the Olympics in 1976, he scored 48 points and missed 2 shots. Now, that was before we had the three-point line. The other thing was that Eddie, in his modesty, said he was fouled on those 2. So Eddie has been an incredible character. He's lived in the United States pretty much since those days, but every now and then we cross paths, and when I was in the United States it's almost 2 years ago now, I was able to give him a call, and he reminisced a bit, and he says this almost every time we communicate. He'd say to me, thank you for having me on your teams and allowing me to play the game without playing any defence. There was no measurement of defence. You know, he was just great with the statistics, did everything else, but there was one time, and I still remember this well, where he had an outstanding game and played defensively extremely well. And I took him aside after the game and I said, Eddie, you no longer have an excuse, because once you've demonstrated that you can play defence, there's no excuse for you not to play defence more frequently. Unfortunately, we never saw that. He was always very much an offensive player and an extraordinary shooter. He attends the World Masters Games. I don't know how many of you might do that, but it is automatic that he wins the free throw shooting contest. Automatic. Others just play for second place. When he called me when I was in the United States a couple of years ago, he said he is aiming for perfection. Now, I don't know how many of you have the motivation to aim for perfection. I said, okay, Eddie, what is your example of perfection? Is what I'm trying to do, or what I'm practicing or training for now, is that I will shoot free throws for 8 hours without missing. He said that would demonstrate perfection, which would then satisfy him as far as his life ambition or achievement is concerned, because always seeking for perfection. So he's won considerable amounts of money at the Las Vegas tournaments, the championships, where he wins the free throw shooting contest there. I think the last time I heard, he finished up winning, I don't know, some fantastic figure, like $10,000 or $20,000 for something like, I think it was 875 free throws in a row. It was automatic. There was just one occasion where I got very upset with him, and we were playing a national game in Newcastle, and he went to the free throw line. Two things he did in this particular game. First of all, he said, "Jesus, it's cold." Threw the ball off the floor, and in it went. He didn't realise actually that's a violation in the game, but the referee was so stunned he allowed it. The next time he went to the line and he shot it left-handed, and in it went. So, you know, I share these anecdotes with our Lithuanian friends who have been, with my experience, ever since I've been involved in basketball. We've been influenced by the Lithuanians. They have been my heroes when we come to international competition. And I keep reminding my colleagues in the sport, Lithuania has about the same population as Victoria. And yet, in Europe, year after year, at the Olympic Games, they are either winning medals or competing so well, and say, what are they doing that we should learn from? We have had the benefit of that learning by, we now call them the Lithuanian Australians, and we're very grateful for that. And we're saying now, amongst those who are going to be competing through the Sports Carnival this week, I wonder who amongst them will be able to follow in the footsteps of their predecessors and join our national teams. Hopefully there are the aspirations for that, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what happens there. The other thing before closing, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the contribution that Vic Soh has made. It wasn't just at the Albert Park Stadium. Vic became iconic here at MSAC, out there on court 4 or 5 or whatever it was. He got to the stage where physically he was no longer able to join the players in their practice and things like that. So he'd sit on the sideline. His technique wasn't like mine. He tended to be somewhat, I'm not going to say abusive, but he was certainly authoritative with his players. And you had to admire the extraordinary passion that he had for the game and the contribution he made until he finally passed on. So, yeah, my respects to Vic. I want to thank all of our interstate visitors here today, where we can join in all of the celebrations of sport and our culture. And just pass on one absolute final comment. My mother would be missing this event, which she looked forward to whenever it was decided that it would be held in Melbourne. Not for the basketball, not for that side of it, but for the folk dancing. Are we going to have folk dancing here?
Tomorrow.
Get that on video. I can't pass it on, but I want to thank you all for the invitation. Good luck to all of those who are participating. Congratulations to everyone who put on this event and keep reminding us just about our history, our culture, and our sporting connections. Thank you very much, and let the games begin.